do have 5:45. We will begin this meeting tonight. First meeting of the purchasing committee will be at 5:45 as we relay that communication. If you will, you've got your purchasing report. FY24 third quarter. If you'll look, you'll see those on page 3 of your handout.
It's under contract. The one it's where you got yes out there. Okay, thank you.
Are there any line items of discussion as you see in purchasing here? Quarter 3, there were in quarter 2 some discussions on why there were some drastic increases in a couple of areas. As you notice, those have kind of waved back out. There was that discussion of 2 months versus 4 months on that piece. Just to make sure you understood the conversation I was having, the Smith County Solid Waste, we had discussed that one. We believe that was we're getting confirmation on a 2-month payment for the first quarter, 4-month payment there for the second quarter, and back to a 3-month payment on that third quarter. Yet we'll notice that one didn't drop off much, stayed. I know our rates are the same, so there's got to be a reason for that piece. More trash, I guess, in the winter months.
This Spirit Architecture down there, have we already paid them $70,000?
Mr. Ford, there was on your last month's discussion in finance, there was a conversation about the fact that we owed them for the planning, the pre-planning, those meetings, and yes, that was a payment of $70,000 and some change. Architectural fees that were already coming in, we started hearing about those fees in that were coming our way in January. Any other discussion from the body? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the purchasing as is, or if there's anything you want to have additional discussion on, we certainly can.
Motion to approve. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. That was a motion to approve the purchasing committee or the purchasing report. We had a motion and a second on that. All those in favor, let me know by stating aye. Aye. With that said, that is all of the meeting for the purchasing side. We will have about a 6 or 7 minute set recession here and move into the finance committee meeting shortly. At this time, we will call the meeting of finance committee together, regular meeting here on our April 15th meeting. You see first off, if you'll look, what is labeled page 2 there, you have the minutes of the March 18th. Take a few minutes to look through those minutes. I'll entertain a motion as soon as you're ready to approve or make changes.
I'll make a motion to approve those.
Ms. Atwood has a motion to approve. Mr. Ford has a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, we will try a vote here. Hang on. Give me just a second. We're gonna try to vote, see if system's working at least. If you will remember, your vote will be in front of you there. You'll have, if I remember correctly, 3 options. A yes, a no, and an abstain. Remember, abstains have to have a cause or they are a no. Plus, 0, and a minus. I was about to say, now it won't let me. I don't have that same option. Are all votes in? Anyone wish to change their vote? If not, please record the vote. Yeses have it, all in favor. At least the system still works. Your trustee's cash balance is somehow in the print that got left off the printing copy here, so we will work on getting that to us in our next meeting. Of course, we'll have we can look at it in the some of the budget hearing meetings if we need to, just get a print of it for those meetings coming up in about 2 weeks. With that being stated, moving on to the next agenda item for tonight, looking at your financial summaries through March, you're looking at 75% of the year. We will start with a 101. Any discussion on the 101 revenues? Mr. Ford?
44,990. What do we have under other local revenues?
44,990, correct?
Mm-hmm.
44,990 is your park rentals, your pool rentals, your community center rentals, and police reports.
It's doing rather well this year.
Any other discussion? Revenues 101. If not, moving into expenditures of 101. Always good to see the final number coming in. Should be at 75%. We're seeing 56.3%. Of course, we'll start seeing some closeout, year-end closeout stuff in the next few months, I'm sure, hitting our way. I think we actually have a few. A couple coming our way tonight. Moving into the 111 then, revenues of 111. Sales tax, 46,970.
This is not the same sales tax as in one of them.
Gotcha. One eleven looks to be well under budget there, 53.8%. At 75% through the budget year. Moving into expenditures. even stronger, 32.6% of the budgeted amount. Moving to 116, there's no discussion on the 111. Recycling's coming in decent. Still again, 116 is at 57.4% of its budget. Mr. Ford?
On line number, one of this is contributions are, we still have 423,000 left. We don't have that much left.
We budgeted 432, we budgeted 423. That's just a typo on that budget line, but we've have already received the 423.
I ain't heard a word you said on.
Well, we're having the same communication issue. The contribution line, we've budgeted 423. That's a typo, the 432 is, and the check has been received for that amount. So that line item is at 100%.
So that is pretty well what we got left.
That's not what's left, no,
That's
sir.
not-
That's what
I
was
thought.
contributed to 116.
Oh, that's what I,
Mr. Ford, that was in the ARPA, we put some money in to purchase a roll-off dump truck, and, I mean, a roll-off bed truck and a backhoe through solid waste. That was ARPA funds that,
right. We didn't have that much left.
no, so that's not, though, that's coming up in a little bit later fund. You'll see it, I think it's 171.
27.
There we go, 127, 128. What's 171? Capital project, sorry. I knew it was a new one, so. Moving to 118, ambulance fund. Of course, you've got your printout on the back for ambulance as well. It's good to see patient charges holding up with income there. Running at about 63% of its budget, even with the overtime movements we've made. Any discussion in 118? If not. Moving on, 121 is your special fund for CCA, core civic movement. It's just pass through money. 122 is pretty much the same. There's the 127, 128, which is your ARPA, American Rescue, dollars left at this time. It's at about 470,000 remaining. Little. There's money still to be spent. Is it more or less, you're telling me? I mean, right here it's showing roughly 470, 476, 477 and some change.
That's what we have spent so far.
Expenditures, you're exactly right. Wrong area. That was expenditures for this year's budget. Where is the balance for that now?
The trustees balance would probably be the best thing to look at, which is not in your.
Prior to putting in these two, 127 and 128, we would always, we're starting to have a number, a breakdown. Can we go back to having that breakdown in there?
You see the expenditures there in this case of where we are. Moving from 127, 128 to 151 debt service. Again, we keep speaking the same thing on debt service. It's gonna look high in the expenditure side because of the refinancing for the rest of this year. You're going to see that. You um, should also see that your revenues look pretty strong. My question I don't mind sharing there, was the investment income, the budgeted 15,000, sitting at 20, line 44, 110. I know this committee had, requested that the, interest from the CDs that were setting on a couple of movements there in November, that they would input into this budget. Miss Amy said she would try to confirm with Miss Cindy to see if that's where that, if that is the total out of current for the interest on those. When she gets a chance. Moving to 171.
Mr. Chairman,
I apologize, Mr. Dennis.
I'm sorry.
You're good. I gotta look at this instead of, I gotta learn to look at the computer screen too. Too many things to look at. Go ahead, Mr. Dennis.
The question on that overage in the 151, going from 15 to 20. I think what we're trying to do is we're showing an exuberant amount of overage in the 101. 101 budgeted for 40, and there's 190 sitting there. Is there any way that overage can be moved from the 101 to the 151? Allow the 101 to make all that was budgeted, but the overage be given credit to the 151.
If I remember correctly, I think a resolution would have to be put in front of commission in order for a fund to contribute to another fund. The interest made in 101 is based on several accounts that are automatically go to the general fund. I'll talk with Cindy just to see if she knows the process to get that approved. But a lot of it is the rates that were approved at the beginning of the year. You know, there was an estimate on what the interest rate or the interest income would be. And so we budgeted pretty low in 101.
Mr. Dennis, does that answer your question at this point? If we need to look into that resolution, we certainly can look at where we need to go if that's the case. That was, I believe, the goal of this committee, was that those funds setting, drawing interest moved into that 151 for debt service. Anything else in 151? If not, moving 171 capital projects, there's the one I mentioned earlier. Mr. Ford, that's where I was discussing the capital projects, that 70,561 that you were discussing earlier. That was in our March as well. There's that number. It just showed up in purchasing tonight as well. But you'll notice 322. In March, we were told it was going to be that amount. It was already on the March agenda. The March 18th, I believe, was that date. Mr. Ford?
This 91, 120. 8/23, 2023. Since Mr. Holders wanted backed out on us, shouldn't he pay that money back to the county?
That was part of the original 6-month agreement. He did not back out on the original agreement.
Miss Amy, I'll take those, thank you. So, Mr. Ford, in looking at where we were at there, the county, had an agreement for a 6-month term. The 6-month term had ended prior to, there was an extension available if, we had wanted to extend it. Mr. Stanley chose not to extend it. Does that answer your question? We didn't get to where we wanted to get in enough time to get there, it seems like. The goal didn't work in that direction. I think you've been in contracts like that when you're talking about a contract that was at the price it was, that was an understandable number. Moving to the 131. Highway fund, it's not passed through completely. The county contributes a few pieces there, a little over 100,000. As you will notice, to that piece, yearly. But as I've always noticed, we've got some pretty nice roads in Charleston County and, they are kept up pretty well. I don't want you to take Highway 25's, potholes that we have lately and count that towards our highway department. That's not their highway to maintain. Somewhat of a joke and somewhat of a jab. Man, there's some rough tire holes out my way. I don't know if you've been towards the east. All good? All right. Long as you've not failed, we're good. Moving on then from 131 to 141 schools, general purpose school account, looking at the revenues. So that 4210, the local option sales tax, I was asking, that is showing at 93%, which it is, but it's actually only in its 8th month of looking at. It's what I was asking that question. It runs a month behind. So sales tax is coming in very strong again. Anything in the revenue side anyone wants to discuss? If not, I would entertain a motion to accept the financial summaries from March, if that's in favor of the committee. Mr. Ford, motion to accept the financial report. Ms. Atwood has seconded. Any discussion further? If not, I believe can't do that. I was just checking that system earlier to make sure it was still working since we hadn't used it in a bit. But we'll still go with it. All those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Moving to your 101 general services. You've got a couple of budget amendments coming our way. These are out of 101. If you'll notice that F beside, again, we've mentioned this a few times lately, but the F is a fund balance draw. 101-20F sheriff overtime and salary supplements. You have a breakdown of that on page, it says page 24. What is the will of the body? Ms. Atwood?
Do we know why we're still continuing to have all this overtime with it being notated at holidays?
If you've heard this explanation, and I asked this of Miss Amy just the other day, when her and I were discussing this expecting that conversation to come up. The current, or the system that was the wage study that became our pay scale, has in it that overtime, I'm sorry, that, holiday pay, would be considered time worked for that shift. So if your shift is 8 hours, your holiday is an 8 hour shift. If your shift is a 10 hour shift, your holiday is a 10 hour. If your shift is a 24 hour day, your holiday is your vacation day you took is a 24 hour pay. It also, had in there on the sheriff's department where comp time, if you'll remember, like our SROs used to receive comp time, for ball games work, things of that nature. Their ball games work comp time is no longer comp time, so comp time building days off, it's now overtime pay as well. Ms. Atwood?
Totally understand that. So is this just to technically being short-staffed? The reason that we're getting overtime for others, does that make sense? I'm just trying to get some clarity for the questions that are being asked about it. It seems like it's a trend, it's becoming kind of trendy, kind of like ambulance service started out.
We
Does
are
that make
seeing a
sense?
lot of overtime. We are seeing a lot of overtime. That certainly makes sense. The way it is set up right now is gonna set up to see us a lot of overtime in those places, especially with, when you think about comp time and and I'm not pushing this towards ball games or anything of that nature, but we have one on SRO at it, and safety at those events, there's overtime time. A sheriff's department is a 12 hour shift, a vacation day, is 12 hours. And not only is it 12 hours vacation, it's added to that week's pay, so, it could definitely get into overtime quick. Um, in looking at those pieces, this year there was a change, not there's a fund set up by the governor that pays those SROs, so there might be some pieces there that we might need to look into, make sure that overtime piece is not overrunning this look. I don't know if it is or it's not. School resources are in a different function. Mr. Ford?
We're gonna be looking at this every month we come in here.
The last 2 months we've looked at sheriff actually the last 3 months we've looked at sheriff
Sure.
overtime. Yes, sir.
58,000 this month.
Yes, sir.
Something ain't right.
There's definitely some overtime. if you'll talk to your sheriff, you will see an understaffed issue. There have had some individuals leave, some individuals I think that maybe have had some injuries that they're having to fill shifts for. And the sheriff has mentioned to us many times, and don't forget this piece, the sheriff has mentioned many times that he is having to send 2, 3, 4 guys on court date situations to extended runs to pick up inmates that are our inmates from Trousdale Turner that have committed a crime at Trousdale Turner and have become a Trousdale County inmate for a situation. And he is sending, for safety concerns, multiple individuals. I think he even told us multiple cars to the same individuals from time to time. So that has an overtime cost. So I don't know the exact numbers and the pieces on it, but it will have a cost.
Is there a way for us to get kind of like a breakdown, kind of like how we have from the ambulance service on the sheriff's? Just so we could kind of like monitor it, how we've monitored EMS.
I think you're gonna see those numbers of what percentages we're talking about over is what you're really gonna see. and how far it's went over. And then remember, I don't disagree with your statement. It's more intriguing to me to look at the numbers month to month than it is to look at that new percentage, because when we move this money in there, that percentage is going to change overall. So that percentage is not telling you the true story. So I don't disagree. We haven't had the reason the EMS is telling us a true story right now is we're not inputting money into the EMS. So that percent is where that percent stayed. But when we, like last month, this percent would show different today than it would have a month ago because we input budget funds into last month. Is that somewhat clear? I understand the math behind it, but I can
No,
be clear.
I understand what you're saying. I'm just wondering if there's some way for us to kind of like monitor it percentage wise and dollar wise, if that makes sense, to see if, do we need to maybe revamp or have this conversation under prison oversight back with the prison to see if we can't recoup some of these fundings for this taking our overtime. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Just where if we're having to take an inmate to court and transport them and say they are medium security. Well, they've committed a crime to whatever their extent is, and then we've got to have multiple guards with them. We've got to have a chaser van or a chaser vehicle. You know, I'm just trying to see.
So the reports I can give, I can't give those. no.
Right, no, I mean, I understand that, but I'm just wondering if we can see if that trend is solely time spent on court that's taken away from patrolling in the county. Does that, am I making sense with that?
I think you're
I know
making.
it's a lot of,
I think you're making total sense. Actually, I know the sheriff has mentioned this in budget a few times. And this committee has recommended and asked that he try his best to keep a record of what those costs are incurring to the county, so we can have some data to bring to the prison and say, hey, here's a cost that we are incurring, from you being in our town, from your inmates being citizens of our town. So that has been asked, and like Ms. Amy said, she gets a number that says from the sheriff's department, here's how much my overtime is. I know if you'll look at it, if you go back and look at jail security, if I'm not incorrect, we haven't had a security officer from jail security, for courtroom security, this year. That position has not been filled, and we've pulled out of it a time or two. So you really won't see the movements, because that one's still sitting at like 50s. I had to go back and look at it, but it's not very high of a percentage of money out of that 70-something thousand that it's budgeted at. And we pulled 22,000 out of it, less than a third of the money that was budgeted for that account, and that went into overtimes in the past. These I know are a fund balance draw, but there have been different places that's been pulled from of positions that haven't been hired as well. That's why it's really more in what numbers moved and how much money did we put into that piece. We know the causes that we've been told. One of the causes is the way overtime or vacation time is accumulated or attributed, paid out. And the other being, has been told to us that there's a cost of picking up inmates. And then the other, at this current time, they are short-staffed, they're telling us. I talked to some this weekend that were filling in shifts this weekend, on overtime. So I get that there's a shortness of staff right now. Mr. Ford?
Two things. Number one, I think we should talk with the prison and see if they can supplement some of this. I talked to one of our judges the other day, local judge. There's 19 murders out there pending. So if that's what's creating the overtime, it ain't gonna go away. In fact, it may get worse. So when it comes time to sit down with them again, I know they give us a little more money last year. They need to give us some more money this year, because we didn't create this problem, they did.
I think you're talking about the negotiation table in the future, and we've got to have data to support it.
Absolutely.
Mr. Bella?
Mr. Ford, probably what needs to happen is a small group, maybe just talk to them like we did before about these issues. before we do that, we need to make sure we know what we're talking about in the way of the overtime. What part of this overtime deals directly with that transportation cost versus other overtime areas, whether it's short staffing or not. That way we can,
All of this is related to that.
eh, don't know. I just know that we need to have that in hand before we go to negotiate with them.
Thank you, Honorable Baylor. Mr. Gregory?
I was just thinking we could, instead of fund balance, do the courtroom security, that's just at 29% now. I mean, could take it out of that fund, I mean, instead of fund balance like we did.
I see Miss Amy shaking her head. She may have a reason she doesn't want to.
4 people in courtroom security.
Those positions have been filled. I think what you're saying there in this case, and I don't disagree with you, but I think it would work out in the wash. That would roll over into fund balance, if it's left over. So it might save us from having to do a budget, draw to, or a budget amendment to, change courtroom security if it were to get close. So it'd just be paperwork on that end. It would pull over, should anyway. I hate to use the words come out in the wash, but I think that would somewhat come out in the wash for us. Would entertain a motion. It is money that is needed at this time, it appears, for overtime. I think some of this is hopefully not just catching us up, but getting us ahead, if I understand correctly. So there's a hope that this will get us through a period of time. It has been on us month to month here lately. Mr. Ford?
I'll make a motion to approve it, but I think we need to bring the sheriff in here and let him bring us up to date on what's going on. We don't need to be looking at this every month.
Mr. Ford, I think, and I hope I hear what you're saying. I hope you're asking for numbers coming to us from the sheriff. Here's the breakdowns of where these overtimes are coming from. Is that what I understood you to say in that motion as well? Is that from him vocally or from him on documentation?
Approve it.
Okay.
And if the labor's been done, so we gotta pay it. So my motion is to approve it, but I still would like to invite him to come to the court and bring us up to date on what's going on. And here's the sheriff department.
I will reach out to the sheriff for some of our next meetings and see if we can get that before some of our budget meetings as well. We have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? Have a motion and a second to approve this budget, to make a favorable approval of this budget draw, a budget amendment. Any discussion further? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It does pass. That will require a roll call vote on the night of, next Monday night. Fund balance draws will recall roll call. I'll require. Senior citizen ads is we're looking at here in this case. A small,
Motion to approve.
have a motion to approve by Mr. Gregory. Mr. Ford with a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? Ayes do have it. It is approved. Your next one you'll see here, 101, sheriff vehicle maintenance and repairs, insurance recovery from March 31st, event involving a patrol car. This is insurance money in. I don't think we want to turn that down. Do I hear a motion to approve? Mr. Ford has a motion to approve. Favorable recommendation. Mr. Belcher has a second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It does move forth with a favorable recommendation. We just had a little discussion. This is not 101, this is 111. This is $40,000. As was stated earlier, this is sheriff overtime mostly. It is in that and the funds that have to be within it. But Miss Amy does hope this gets us through a lengthier period of time, not just month to month. So don't look at those numbers as month to month. I realize it's $107,000, but
we're hoping it gets us through I'm hoping for Miss Amy, it gets us through July or through June to the July. That is the goal with those numbers. If you remember, this happened similar with EMS last year, where we did a couple month to months and then we tried to get a lengthy time. As stated earlier, if it doesn't go out, it would roll back into the fund balances of those. It is a fund balance draw, would require a roll call vote next Monday night. It's the same discussion we had a few minutes ago. Um, I think it may have a difference in sometimes in who is in each of those places, and those positions may be more highly paid than others. So that is very possible. Do I hear a motion? Is it any discussion what you want movement on it or not? I have a motion on the floor. Do I hear a second? We have a motion and a second for this to be a favorable recommendation. Any discussion further? Mr. Gregory, I understand your discussion and your concern on that as well.
I mean, is he not being short on urban services deputies, have we? I mean, we're supposed to have so many, one each shift in the urban services. We shouldn't be, I mean, I don't know if it'll be one short or not or two on it. I just wonder, that's a really a big amount for that many officers that's paid out of urban services.
Won't disagree with you, as was stated, the way the alignment is set up, those individuals are making a higher salary, something to discuss with the sheriff. We do have a motion and a second on the floor. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It does move with a favorable recommendation. Next one is a pension increase, employee benefit, state retirement. As you see, just increases have happened. Pension rates for Old City employees have increased. Do I hear a motion of approval? Any discussion? Motion to approve. And a second. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. All opposed? It does pass with a motion, favorable recommendation. There's that word again. So as we've been seeing, once again, this is hopefully going to move the overtime through the year. I don't think when we looked at EMS earlier, if you go back to page, give me a second, I'll bring that up. If you will go back to what says page 14 there, the page 14, you will see that currently overtime line 187 inside that piece is sitting at 75%. And that is 2 weeks behind what you're seeing. I do feel as if, I would ask you and encourage you to look at the budgeted amounts over the last couple of years for those line items and see where that is continuing to go. It might be interesting to look at. I made mention earlier that that percent doesn't always tell the tale. There are movements that have been made, and budget amendments that have been made or budget amendments that were made the year before, and we made those up in this next year. So I'm just encouraging you to do your research on those numbers and see where those overtimes are really laying.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dennis,
the difference between, this amendment and the previous overtime amendments, this is not a fund balance draw. This is moving funds between line item to line item on a budget that we approved last year.
yes,
So
sir.
we're not adding new money to it. Which again, I like that a lot better as opposed to having to pull fund balance money, in the middle of a budget year, but, again, it's monies within a budget that we approved almost a year ago, so.
Well stated, Mr. Dennis. It's just a movement of money that was already there. The medical staff is understaffed. There's money still there. We moved money out of medical staff last month to put into that part-time PRN, if you'll remember. So there's been money there available. It was in the budget, as was stated. Do I hear a motion? Mr. Gregory with a motion, Mr. Ford with a second. Any discussion further? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes do have it. It is a favorable recommendation. All right, looking at the 131, the biggest piece here is there is some cleanup line items here and the addition of a revenue line item for electric vehicle registration. You'll see that line item showing up in the 131,46,925. Do we see that? I was trying to ask clarification on the 718, that 6,800, 718, 60, as you see, 68,000, 718, sorry. The $120,000 there, no further information on that at this point. As we stated earlier, the highway fund does a really good job of moving their funds and doing well with their funds. The county actually contributes less than that amount as a whole to that budget, so. Yes, sir. Motion to approve in a second by Ms. Atwood. Any discussion further? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay? All right, we are moving forward. Thank you for that clarification. Your next one, 141, 11, a nurse position. An additional nurse position, if I understand this correctly. I cannot, it does tell us at the elementary school. I think there has been I don't know if you know that piece, but that has had a couple of individuals overwhelmed, it appeared, and leave that position because of being overwhelmed from that position. There was a new hire here just a couple of months ago. So if you're seeing what's going on there, that there are a lot of students in Charleston County, and that was one nurse in that school. Any movement towards approval of this or support of this budget amendment? Mr. Gregory has, Ms. Atwood with a motion, Mr. Gregory with a second. Any other discussion there? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. It is a favorable recommendation. You have one more.
insurance recovery. Motion to approve. Mr. Ford, do I hear a second? Mr. Belcher with a second. Any discussion further? If not, all those in favor, let it be known by stating aye. Aye. Any opposed? It is approved. All right, folks. Thank you for those pieces. Let's look at our next, one discussion item we do have to look at. I was leaving it available to us for the generator for the admin building. I know Mr. Salee is attempting to get that, together. He's worked at it. I know he's trying to get some quotes together. I can pass on a little bit of good news, and I'll give credit where credit's due. Commissioner Alan Carmen was able to go and find the, draw on that building. So I think the 125 kW generator will not have to be the size that that building will take. That building would put out about, that generator would pump out about 361 amps. And the most draw that building has ever taken at maximum was 135 amps. So we will be able to get by with a smaller generator, thus a lesser cost, hopefully, in moving into that. And not only covering the one section or 5 panels, if you know how that's laid out, covering the entire admin building. That way, when the power goes out, that entire building would run. I can say this, it is, Mr. Carmen was also able to tell me the building was being supplied with a 75 kW transformer. So that kind of gives you an idea where we're at. But we're not ready to move on that one, I don't think. There could be a chance we have something by, I doubt it, but by Monday night, I would hope, but I doubt it. If not, we're at that point of public comment. Mr. Krieger? Where are you at, sir? Page?
101 expenditure, 58,190. Budget, I only 3,000 and I only spent 18,000. I'm curious what that was.
Can you say that number one more time, please, sir? Oh, I see. Okay,
That is a CDBG grant that has not been fully expended yet.
that cleared up. Is that your only question? All right. Any other discussion there? Public wise? If not, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Oh. I'm glad you said that. Miss Amy and I discussed that just a minute ago, before this meeting. How does, and I've talked with the mayor and he has, hopes of meeting in the near future, with our, department chairs. What does tentative dates, the Monday that I believe it's the 6th, I'm trying to get my calendar pulled up, of May, starting that week, possibly Monday, Tuesday. What does this committee feel about meeting on Wednesday? How does this committee feel about meeting on Wednesdays? I was looking at the the thoughts of 6th, 7th, 8th. If you want to go 4 nights, we could go to the 9th and then possibly scheduling the 13th, 14th, 15th as needed of the next week. So that would be 6 nights available, hopefully not needing all those. Do those nights fit okay with everybody, or do you want to go 4 in 1 week? All right. So that would be the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 13th, 14th, possibly getting 6 nights available. I guess we could move that to the 14th and 15th to help planning. Would that be better for you? Okay, let's look at 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 13th, 14th currently as needed for those next nights. Yes, sir, May 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 13th, and 14th. To hopefully have those hearings. I will be awaiting, I know the mayor is working on it, and we can get hopefully some numbers to us to start looking at in those nights and get those scheduled for who wants to come in. Does this committee have a wish in terms of the order in which those come? 6 p.m. sounds great to me. Yes, sir, we would hope to still stay in this courthouse. Temp. Mr. Gregory, we appreciate that coming in. Does that sound okay with everybody on those meeting dates at this time? There's a tentative dates. We'll try to get those scheduled and see as we need. We know there'll be probably that first week, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and then we'll see what's needed past that point, where we stand. I appreciate you bringing it up. I was actually discussing with Amy beforehand where she wanted, and I completely forgot it now. I do hear a motion to adjourn. Do I hear a second? If so, you can, all those in favor of the aye, consider yourself adjourned. Thank you.